I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've been on the show multiple times, and me and Becca actually go back. Like, I believe he may have been one of the writers that wrote about me in The Source. I had a Source feature like 2002, like over 20 years ago. So, me and him have a long, a connection that goes back a long time. So I don't think it comes down to black and white, but there is a little bit of a gray area. It is a little bit of a slippery slope, and I've had to deal with that over the years. What I do is a little bit different than you because I do interviews, but like, for example, when I interviewed No Plug about the killing of Bankroll Fresh, it was a self-defense killing. Later on, it was established, which is what No Plug said in our interview, he was shot at first, they returned fire, Bankroll Fresh got killed. Bankroll Fresh's people wanted me to do an interview with them to get their side of the story. At that point, I chose not to because I'm like, if I interview them, this is going to escalate the situation even further. Is that a right or wrong answer? I'm not sure. I'm saying they were all pissed at me. They did diss songs about me. I understand why they're upset. But, there's situations, like I've mentioned earlier in the interview, where people in prison who have active cases want to do interviews with me to get their story out. And I have to pass because there's a worry of this interview becoming part of the case, which ultimately finds them guilty. Taxstone wanted me to do an interview with him during his trial. And I said, I just can't do it. Like, you're my actual friend, and you have a chance of potentially walking away from this. I don't want to be the person that puts the nail in the coffin for you. So you can't always say, well, I'm just putting it out there and it's not my fault. Like, you make the decision what you cover, and sometimes what you cover has ramifications. For example, you said, you don't know about the cause of the whole Young Thug situation and not getting killed. Like, I know a little bit about that, but I'm not going to put it out there because I understand the ramifications. Even though I'm a journalist as well, I've been doing it longer than you, I understand ramifications of putting stuff out there, even when it's true. There's certain things that you don't want to potentially put out there because there's serious repercussions, sometimes death or prison and so forth. And shining lights on certain things, you have to make the decision not to do it. People have been asking me for years to interview South Park Mexican. He got a 13-year-old pregnant. I don't want to do it. I don't want to give a child molester a platform. Would it be a story that gets millions of views? I'm sure it would. He's about to get out of prison, I heard. I'm not going to do an interview when he gets out. I'm sure some other outlet will, and I'm sure he'll deny it, but I believe he was like accused or even charged of like molesting like 6 girls who were underage. Like, the booty warrior, we were supposed to interview with him. Then I found out there was all these rapes that he actually did in prison. I just don't want people like that on my platform. I don't want to shine more light to that because I don't want people to think, well, I can get famous by raping men or women or underage kids. Like, it's just certain things where I'm just like, I just don't want to do it. And although it does fall within the news, reporting the news category, journalistic category, it's under that umbrella, but I have to make decisions sometimes every day that I'm just not going to shed light on these things and I understand how big of a platform I have. We're at almost 6 million subscribers. I understand that this could blow certain things up. It could turn into international news. I go viral pretty much every month. I understand all that. So you can't just say, well, you can't blame the weatherman for, reporting on the weather. I don't think that's fair. The weather is happening and people are all, they're all seeing it and they're all feeling it, So I don't think that's a very good analogy, just to be honest. I think you should find another analogy that might make a little bit more sense.
I stand on it, but let me give a little bit more context. I think the reason why it works for me is because I only deal with public sources. If people hit me up and they're like, yo, let me give you the inside scoop on this. I don't want the inside scoop on anything. I'm only trying to work with what's already out there. And I think what we do is really different. And I agree with what you're saying, because I think, like, if you're going to bring new information to the table that people didn't know and is going to inflame the situation, because it's like, wait, what? Like, we just learned something new? I feel like that's got a different degree of power to it, to me, that's bringing stuff that's already out there.
But it's already out there, but it's hidden so deep in Reddit posts and, comments and so forth, that although it technically is public, you are giving it a level of light, considering how popular your channel is, that it's almost new. in a certain type of way.
I feel like the word almost is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, though.
Almost new.
It's almost
seriously,
as in it's not.
If it's public because it's in a Reddit comment 13 pages in, it's hard to say that's public information. It technically is.
That's public information.
But most people don't know about it unless they happen to be in that particular forum on that particular page.
I mean,
so you have to
say that about anything,
realize your impact a little bit more than I think what you're doing now. And this is like OG advice.
No, I appreciate
and
that.
I'm not putting you down. I don't want you shut down. Obviously, I'm giving you a platform for the second time. I respect what you do. I'm just saying that it would behoove you to take a step back and look at it a little bit more high level. That's all I'm saying.
But my counter to that would be like, you would disagree when people say to you, well, you got Keefe D jammed up. Because that was in his book. It was already out there. But to be fair, you brought it to the forefront.
But I admit that, though. I've even said, I solved Tupac's murder, understanding my role in it. And from what I understand, that interview is going to be used in his prosecution. Now, he did write a book, but I did do the interview.
But he did other interviews
too, right? But if I didn't do the interview, he may have not done other interviews. And if it was just a book, it wouldn't have gotten the attention that a Vlad TV interview got, millions and millions of views. And he may still be walking around. So I understand my role in terms of where Keefe D is.
But so then where's the line, Vlad? Like, at what point do I say, well, if I'm reading something, I'm learning all of this stuff, I'm reading a book. At what point it's like, well, you're not allowed to talk about what you read in this book.
No, you're
not
allowed to
talk
do
about
it.
Stuff
You're
from Reddit.
allowed. No. I would never say you're not allowed to do it. You're allowed to do whatever you want. I'm allowed to interview South Park Mexican and talk about all the little girls he molested. I'm allowed to do that. But we all have to make a choice as to what we put our energy into and what we put out into the world. That's it.
See, the way that I view it, though, is like I'm trying to take on these stories with a responsible tone. Like, let's say, for example, I decided I don't know a lot about the case. I know a little bit, South Park Mexican. Let's say I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do the South Park Mexican documentary. Yeah. I'm going to find all the public sources about him. I'm going to find out what happened. I'm going to maybe read some paperwork. I'm going to maybe listen to some interviews, maybe some lyrics, whatever. Piece it all together. I would probably end that documentary and say, this guy's a piece of shit. This is bad. I don't rate this. I don't condone this. This is messed up. I'm trying to take the public fact that's out there and put a responsible kind of tone on it. Because I think that, to me, that's what's really important. I think that's what's missing with the hip-hop, gangster rap, drill culture. King Von makes sliding look cool. I feel like the gangsters, Lil Jeff, he makes killing people look cool. And I feel like my documentary about Lil Jeff makes what he was doing look not cool. He dies at the end of it. It's nothing but death and destruction. He never even got rich. He never really even got to enjoy himself. It's a sad story and it's very negative. So that's the way I feel like I'm doing the journalism responsibly. I get what you're saying, but I just disagree as far as like the way Mech was approaching it, because I just feel like what is the example? Like, what's going to happen? I don't think anybody's sliding like, yo, they killed my brother, they killed my cousin, they're dissing me online. I'm not going to slide. Oh, Trap Law Ross mentioned some shit that had already been out there. Okay, now I'm going to slide. And I'm going to slide for Ross, not for my cousin, not for my brother. I'm going to slide for Ross's documentary that came out 10 years after the fact. It feels like a reach for me to accept the responsibility for what's going on because I'm focused on the public sources. But at the same time, like, I get why it is difficult when it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to interview this gang and he's going to say fuck your homies. I'm going to go interview him and he's going to say fuck his homies. Right. And then they might bump into each other on Saturday when I'm not there and they're going to do their thing. Mm-hmm. And I kind of get why that would be more serious. Like for me, if these guys have already come on your platform and said fuck his homies and he's gone on No Jumper and said fuck his homies, for me, it's like that's already out there. I feel like as a community of fans and people following the hip-hop drill culture, I feel like we're entitled to have a conversation of like, yo, he went on that platform and said F him, he went on that platform and said F him, and that's what happened, that's what's going on, and a couple of songs got made. I just feel like it should be okay to talk about these things. Like, I don't know, I just feel like the way that I'm doing things as far as like, I'm just dealing with public sources, I'm the perspective of a fan, of a super fan that's doing my research and finding this stuff out. But I respect where you're coming from with the OG advice, and I'm a take that in, and I'm going to think about that some more, man. If there's more like, I mean, what could I do differently that you would say would make you feel like I'm taking that on board?
No, listen, I'm not going to tell you to do anything differently. I'm not one of the ones that are saying you shouldn't do it. All I'm saying is, before you do something, you should look at the whole big picture and say, listen, when I put this out and millions of people are going to tune in, what's going to happen afterwards. Am I okay with that? Or am I going to feel bad if something really horrific happens afterwards? You see what I'm saying? If I would have interviewed, Bankroll Fresh's people, and that, immediately afterwards it turned into a shooting, I would feel bad about that. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, but I'm just going to leave it alone if they want to do something on their own platform. And look, people got on Adam for interviewing one of Pop Smoke's killers. I get it. I went through the same thing with interviewing No Plug. So it's not a wrong or right thing. It's just something that you should think about. And as you get bigger, just realize the implications of what you do. That's it. That's it. And I'm not coming at you like Mecca.
No, I hear it. It's interesting, but it's interesting to hear the argument in a more level-headed tone, because he was flying off the handle with it in a way that was.
Mecca's going to be Mecca.
No, but I'm curious to know about that, because I feel like you're almost giving yourself too much credit there, because like with the No Plug situation, blood had already been shed, right? Those guys are finna have shootouts over that situation. Somebody's been killed. Who knows? And it's probably not online. There's probably been situations offline about that stuff that's completely unrelated to you. I feel like it's a stretch for you to even blame yourself. Like, you didn't do that interview, right? But you did do the No Plug interview. But even then, I just don't feel like we could point the finger at you. Blood's been shed. That's a war that was already going on. Bankroll Fresh was doing what he was doing for the situation to happen, and it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, could you like give me an example where like you feel like an interview you've done or somebody else has done has actually led to something like that? Because I feel like that shit's already going on in the streets, and to me, the most inflammatory thing is the music, to be honest with you, and I'm a fan of it.
The easiest one is BTB Savage. BTB Savage killed someone in self-defense. Someone came into his home, allegedly tried to rob him. They started fighting over the gun. BTB Savage's girlfriend, I believe, took out the gun and killed him. Killed the guy that was trying to rob him. And he talked about it in the interview. And look, I had a situation with a home invasion. And, me personally, and I, thought I'd killed the guy. So I'm very sensitive about these types of topics. And I feel that you should be allowed, when someone goes into your home, you should be, and tries to, attack you in your home, you should be able to respond with deadly force. I'm all for that, right? The interview came out, and then he posted a picture on his Twitter of him in the room with the guy's blood all over the floor, and he's showing off his jewelry, and it said, too much motion. And I believe right after that, he gets killed.
You don't blame yourself for that, though, for having done the interview, no?
I don't blame myself, but I did feel awful when I heard that he was killed. And I remember his mother went on this social media rampage. She was obviously very hurt, very upset. She accused me of somehow doctoring the interview and him saying he doesn't want to talk about it. I just want to talk about my music. That never happened. I'm 100% positive. I have all the raw footage. I'll release it if necessary. He wanted to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Someone tried to kill him. He ended up acting in self-defense. He was never charged because it was self-defense. But I felt awful over that situation. Over him dying. He was a young man. He had his life ahead of him. I believe he had kids. It was awful. And, I have interviewed other people since then. I've interviewed Hurricane Chris. He killed somebody in self-defense. But it does make me think about, there are a lot of times repercussions for these videos going out and becoming super viral. It upsets certain people, and people take it personally, and sometimes people want to retaliate and so forth. So would I have done the interview over again? Probably, because I felt it was an important story. It was already being covered, in the media, and he had his right to talk about it. I don't feel like he glorified it. I felt that picture glorified it. I would have never. That picture came out after our interview.
But that's the thing. I feel like people talk like, oh, your documentaries or your interviews are going to make people slide. I disagree. A picture in the crime scene surrounded by the blood, talking about too much motion. That's the most inflammatory thing about the whole thing, besides somebody actually getting killed, right?
Yeah.
So whether he did the interview with you, he would have done it with someone else. He would have just said the same shit on IG Live. The interview could have never happened. The dude killed someone and then he flexed the crime scene. And again, it's just like, it's like almost like if you pinpoint where the actual inflammation of the situation went on, I don't think you could point to the Vlad interview and say that. But I get what you're saying, and I feel like you getting personally involved and having done the interview and get to know him, you probably do have a degree of self-blame. Obviously, there's a big thing that's been going on in hip-hop recently. We had Brandon Buckingham just do the vlog with YBC Dull. He ends up dying the day after it comes out. And, you know, a lot of people were blaming Brandon and saying it was his fault and that he did this and that. But again, you just got to remember, YBC Dull was on every song talking about smoking this person, that person, the other person. He's on the block talking about, my man shot him, that guy just broke by, my man shot him. That's Dull. And he done a bunch of vlogs with different people. Brandon was devastated at the situation because he'd become friends with him. But, you know, I told him it's not his fault. You know, he can't blame himself. It's not the content's fault. It's not his fault. Dull was Mr. Disrespectful, putting himself in that situation. But I do appreciate what you're saying. I do really want to conduct myself with morals and ethics. And it's not my goal to get anyone jammed up by any means. So that's absolutely not what my mission is. You know, I'm on a hunt for the truth and to just try and get to the core of like the truth of actually the information that's available in the kind of public space. But you know, I understand where you're coming from, man, and I'm going to keep that in mind for sure.
Yeah. Final question. One of my members, Joe Knight in 5647. said, "Are you related to Harry Potter?"
That's my.
Is there a lightning bolt underneath those bangs?
That's my cousin, man. We're from the same set, man. We're from the same set. Now they be hitting me the Harry Potter jokes all the time, man. You know, I've embraced it.
With those glasses.
I've embraced it now. The glasses.
You've embraced it.
The glasses get bigger every time, man.
Okay.
I get thicker ones every time. Now I'm on the bow tie. Like I'm really just trying to overwhoop it now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But no, man, it's you know what I'm saying, shout out to the Hogwarts gang, man. You know, that's the set.
That's what it is. Traplo Ross, man. And by the way, why the name Traplo Ross?
You know what? It's funny, man. I just came up with it, but the idea is it's folklore from the trap, folklore from the streets and from gangster rap and rappers. So it's trap lore, folklore from the trap. And Ross is actually my real name, so it's not a fake name. I'm actually Traplo Ross, so that's the reasoning, man.
Well, that's what it is, man. Congratulations on your success. You know, these days in 2024, the YouTube space is definitely very crowded. You know, not only in my space, but in your space as well. Like everyone's got a documentary. There's tons of documentaries about me.
Yeah.
Most of which are very negative, but it just is what it is. It comes with the territory. But the fact that you've actually carved out this lane for yourself, and I really consider you one of the top guys in the hip hop documentary space. I feel like you've really overdone it. You know, these 6-hour pieces, you know, we talked about last time how when you did the King Von serial killer documentary, you went through every single tweet he's ever tweeted in his life. Mm-hmm. The level of OCD that you really, you know, and I have OCD myself, that you really done your job with is very impressive. And I think the numbers show, you know, and the number of fans, the number of viewers, and everything else like that, man. So wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Vlad. And, you know, it's a pleasure to be here. You're an OG of the game. You really carved the path for people like me to exist, man. So thank you for everything you're doing, man. And thank you for having me again.
Likewise. Peace.